this video I just wanted to talk about video recording limits on the Panasonic GH6, and the Panasonic cameras in general really excel at long form recording, and that's one of the reasons why I really think they're good cameras to use. That you don't get recording limits like on some other cameras where you'll have maybe 10-minute recording limits or 30 minutes or even an hour, because if you're trying to do any type of long form recording, then that really creates a problem, because you're going to have to go back to the camera, and then you're going to have to plan for that cut and then restart the video after that amount of time. And also, if you're leaving a camera on its own just to record over maybe it's an hour or two at a conference or event, it's nice to know you can just leave that camera. You don't have to go and babysit it every 10 minutes or half an hour or whatever it may be. So these cameras really kind of excel at that, in just with that one thing, the fact that you've got those unlimited recording options. And then on top of that, we've got things like SSD recording. So we've talked about the drives we can use in a previous video. I'll link that up in the corner. But we've already talked about that. So obviously, with the camera, we've got the limitations of they're giving you unlimited recording, but you do have the limitation of the battery and storage. So they've given SSD recording, which you can have up to 2 terabytes of storage. So that's a huge amount of space to be recording your media onto. And then in terms of batteries, they've given us lots of great things like we've got the USB-C port on the side, which accepts USB PD power. And again, we've covered that in another video, which I'll link to that above. And there are other options as well, like you could use dummy batteries going out to even mains power through the official Panasonic AC10. Again, we've covered that in another video. All these things we're talking about will be up in the corner. But so yeah, you could do mains power, or you could run it out over a D-tap to a V-mount battery, or there are tons of options available. So really, we could power the camera almost all day. It's just and we could get up to 2 terabytes worth of footage on it. So, and even if we're not using SSD, if that's something that you're not actually using, the camera even has really good built-in card recording modes on it. So if you can use one of the video options that supports relay recording, for example, again, I'll link above, but essentially relay recording allows you to jump from one card to the next, and you can kind of hot swap cards. So you'd essentially actually be able to record more than 2 terabytes, because you can just keep on going with it. So it does mean, obviously, when the card fills up, you're going to need to replace the card that's not in use and sort of dump the footage off. But again, it is a viable kind of option, and you're certainly not under like any massive limitations with that. So there's plenty of options on the camera, which is really good. And the main thing really I was going to say in this video was that if you do plan on using the Panasonic GH6 for long form recording, then it's worth bearing in mind that it will actually break the files up regardless of how you set the camera. So again, we talked about segmented video recording. I'll link to that, and that's where we intentionally tell the camera break the footage down every so often, and then we've got less worry of maybe a large corrupted file. But by default, the camera will actually do this itself. So it depends on quite a lot of factors. It's the recording file format, the quality it's recording at, the bit rate, and even the card that's being used. So it's there are quite a lot of factors that play into it, but it essentially will do it in sort of different increments. So for some, it will record for 30 minutes or up to 4 gig, and then it will break that file up. So then we'll just get a seamless cut basically, but we'll have a file that we just need to drop together in a timeline. And for some of them, it's very large. For the CF Express card, in like the MOV format, or for ProRes, for example, it can record up to 3 hours 4 minutes, or up to 640 gigs. So like it's a huge amount. So, and that's that's in the higher, the higher bit rates. But there's a few different splits in there. There's another split for 600 megabytes a second where it will do up to 3 hours for still, but the limitation will be 192 gigs. So you don't really need to know all the numbers and times. It's just worth knowing that if you plan on shooting long form, it will break those videos up a little bit. So if you're a bit confused as to why you just dragging the last video off your card or something, and you just think, why isn't this the whole video? It's because the camera will have just broken down the files itself, and depending on the file formats you're using, the file naming, it should just go in like a sequential format. So if you shoot a few hours, depending, say if you're shooting an MP4 for example, in HD, that will break it up every 30 minutes. So you're going to end up with a few files there that you just piece together. So it's not a restriction in any way. It's just sort of mentioning that that is a factor just to bear in mind, that you will have a few different files to work with. Another great thing about the camera is it's not sort of been positive for everyone, but the camera shoots some crazy big files, and part of them being able to do that is because they've added this fan, which is obviously, you can sort of see both sides of it. It's added a little bit of kind of depth to the camera, and it's added a bit of weight to the camera, but it's also given some amazing extra features that are really welcome to the camera. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. If you're not shooting those really high bitrate modes, and then the sort of extra weight on the camera obviously isn't a welcome addition for you. But for anybody that is, it's great because it gives us a lot of extra options, and you've actually even got options in the camera to do things like we've got thermal management. So it will flag a warning when the camera is starting to get hot to the touch, basically. So if you've got it on a tripod and you're not hand holding it, you can actually set that to high, and it will allow it to record for longer without kind of but after a while the camera may need to shut down if there's an issue. But it's not something I've ever come across. But I live in the UK, so it's even our summer is quite cold to other countries. Winter, it's we generally don't have like too much of a problem here. I've shot for hours and hours at events and not really had issues. But we've also got things like the fan mode, where by default it's set so it will just compensate to the heat of the camera. So if the camera starts getting a bit hotter, the fan will spin that bit faster. But if you're in a really hot situation, it could be that you set that to fast. But one thing to just kind of bear in mind there, for me it's never been a problem, because I usually have a few mics set up, and quite often they're quite far away. I will have an on-camera mic go in usually as a scratch track or something, because where I'm recording quite often might not be near to what's going on, so I'm just sort of shooting from further away. But one thing to bear in mind, if you've got an on-camera mic and using the fan at a higher level, it may be that you actually get some of that fan noise in your audio. So you can kind of play with these things and work it out. There are some shotgun mics that are really good actually at reducing the fan noise in the camera, but some with kind of a wider field of picking up audio, you will hear that fan noise. So it's it's worth. I would always kind of do a trial run before you go out and do something, and then you've got a good idea of how the camera's going to perform, at least at a base level. And there's always going to be some kind of hurdles or obstacles while you're filming events or shows or whatever it is that you do. It's just there's never a perfect shooting environment outside of kind of a studio. So if you've got that base understanding of how your camera is going to work, then you're in a pretty good place, and you can just kind of build on that as you're going. So hopefully you found that useful. If you have, give the video a like. If you want to see more about the Panasonic GH6, then please check out the playlist on this channel, and please subscribe for more content.